I was never supposed to be standing here tonight. Statistically speaking, I should have been a cautionary tale. A teen mom at 16, a small town girl with a big mouth and bigger dreams. Someone who is supposed to disappear into the background of her own life. But here I am. Growing up, I wanted to be a writer. Well, except for that brief glitter-fueled detour where I was convinced I'd become a marine biologist. You can thank Lisa Frank for that. Those neon dolphins and rainbow seahorses on Trapper Keepers made marine life look like a rave I wanted to be a part of. But as I got older, I realized I didn't actually want to save the ocean. I just like sparkly folders. What I really loved was writing. In 7th grade, we had an assignment to write about someone we admired. Most kids picked athletes or pop stars, probably someone with their own sneaker deal or their own Barbie. I chose Pedro Zamora, the young HIV/AIDS activist from the real world San Francisco. He had just passed away, and something about his strength, his kindness, and his purpose really moved me. It didn't occur to me that writing about AIDS might raise eyebrows. I just knew it mattered. My teacher must have thought so too. She gave me an A and asked to submit my paper for a statewide publication. She could have picked the essay about Michael Jordan dunking on the Bulls, but she picked mine. That felt big. I started dreaming of getting out of this small town and becoming a writer. I pictured someone who wakes up early, drinks coffee in silence, wears beautiful clothes, and always knows what she's doing. A poor man's Carrie Bradshaw, minus the Manolos. I imagine moving to a big city, renting a crappy apartment, working a day job, and writing by night, untethered by anyone's expectations. Freedom to figure out who I wanted to be. But life had other plans. I became a teen mom at 16. And when my son was born, that writing dream, it didn't die exactly. It just got buried under diapers and homework. Still, I finished high school with honors. I acted in theater, joined clubs, worked a part-time job, and somehow, with lots of help, managed to keep a tiny human alive. 2 months after graduation, I got married, and then came 2 more kids. But let me complicate this picture a little further. When I was pregnant with my middle child, I realized something that made everything even harder. I am gay. Now, discovering your sexuality is already a lot. Discovering it while you're carrying a baby, that's next level. And it didn't help that Queer as Folk had just wrapped up on Showtime and the L Word started right after. Those shows weren't just TV for me, they were like a neon sign flashing, "Welcome to the party. You're very late, but you're here." Of course, at the time, it didn't feel funny. It felt confusing, isolating, and impossible to reconcile with the life I was already living. I was constantly bombarded with pressure to accept my life and enjoy motherhood, to believe this was all I should ever hope for. So I leaned hard into the role of wife and mother. But behind those closed doors, there was abuse. Not always the kind that leaves bruises you can see, but the kind that breaks you down from the inside. The kind that makes you doubt your worth. The kind that teaches your children to mistake fear for love. And I knew I couldn't let my kids grow up thinking love should feel that way. Eventually, I walked away. It was hard, but staying was harder. I didn't know who I wanted to be, but I knew who I didn't want to be. A little while later, I met someone new. We started dating, and I moved 30 minutes away to the booming metropolis of Decatur. It was the first time I felt like my life was beginning. I had a grown-up job as a legal assistant. My kids were in good schools, sports, cheerleading, the works. Life looked stable. And then one day, I saw a news story about women starting a roller derby team. They were bold, badass, built like real people. I turned to my partner at the time and said, if they can do that, I can do that. And I did. Sure, at first I looked like Bambi on ice, but eventually I found my rhythm. That team, those women, that sport, it changed me. I found confidence for the first time in my life. We were moms, nurses, students, teachers, realtors, and everything in between. But on that track, wearing fishnets and booty shorts, no less, we were one team. And for the first time ever, I felt powerful in my own skin. Despite being told for years that my education and my future didn't matter, I went back to school. And while it wasn't the writing career I imagined, my dreams didn't die. They just started looking different. Instead of publishing articles, I was signing permission slips. Instead of book tours, I was secretary for my roller derby league. And at every job I had, I slipped creativity into the cracks. The perfect email, the flyer, the words that made someone stop and pay attention. But life wasn't done testing me. I thought divorcing my ex-husband would mean freedom, but I wasn't free, not even close. For the next 15 years, he dragged me back into court almost every single year. It wasn't about the kids, it wasn't about co-parenting, it was about control. It was about keeping me small and keeping me scared. Every summons felt like a threat. Every courtroom felt like a prison. I wasn't just fighting for time with my kids. I was fighting to keep breathing under the weight of his harassment. And for 15 years, I lived in that cycle of fear. Eventually, I made the impossible decision to move back to my hometown. Not because I wanted to, but because I thought it would keep my kids safer. But even there, he still had power over me, where I lived, where I could take my kids, how holidays were spent. Even though he was no longer my husband, he still controlled my life. And in that painful season, drinking became a problem. When things got too heavy, too dark, too relentless, that's where I turned. And it cost me. I lost my ability to drive. The irony isn't lost on me that I gave away even more independence. And then, just to add insult to injury, I tried to get sober during a global pandemic. In 1 year, I lost my father, my uncle, my aunt, and my mother-in-law. The grief was relentless. Over those 15 years, I moved 13 times. Always chasing a home I could afford, always trying to fit 3 growing kids into 2 small spaces. They missed out on pieces of their childhood because of it, and none of it was their fault. But even in the chaos, we found joy. We made memories, and somehow I ended up with 3 amazing kids. They're all adults now. And this year, on July 15th, a date that used to be my wedding anniversary, I realized something. I hadn't been to court in a year. Our last hearing was July 15th, 2024. And in that moment, it hit me. After 15 long years, I never have to go back. I am finally free. So what now? Now that my kids are grown, now that my responsibilities are fewer, I am truly untethered. For the first time since I was 16, my life belongs entirely to me. It's thrilling and terrifying. What do I do with it? Where do I even begin? I've realized something about that fantasy version of myself, the polished writer who always knows what she's doing. She didn't leave any room for who I really am. Someone who questions, someone who hesitates, someone who wants more and less all at once. I overthink everything. I change my mind way too often. I get stuck on what to make for dinner. I don't move through life with certainty. I move through it with questions. My mind is complicated, messy, tangled, and beautiful in its own way. But it's never quiet. And maybe that's okay. So, do I write the book? What would it say? How would I start? Chapter 1, Kristen finds her voice. Kristen steps out onto the stage, blinded by the lights, as she finds her way to the yellow music stand. Hands shaking, she reaches for the microphone. She opens her mouth to speak. The crowd cheers. And just like that, Kristen is a writer.